another big guest lined up for you today. Somebody I'm very fond of, had the pleasure of working with on a one-to-one basis, and we can touch on that a little bit later. But I'm joined today by ex-county cricketing legend, gritty opening batsman for the famous Warwickshire cricket team, as well as a world-renowned coach. I'm joined today by Mr. Andy Moles. How are you, sir?
I'm very good. Lovely to see you again, Shaky.
It's great. It's great to have you. It's great to have you. Now, just before I go forward, I mentioned that you worked with you played for Warwickshire very successfully. But to give an idea of the teams that you've coached around the world, to name a few: Hong Kong, Kenya, Scotland, Northern Districts in New Zealand national team, and in the latter stage of your coaching career, you've worked for many years now with the Afghanistan cricket team, and these are all things that I want to talk to you about today, as well as some recent challenges that Andy has faced in his life, and we will talk about that later on in the episode. So I want to take you all the way back. I'm going to test your mind today, more than your memory. Take me back to your childhood, where you were born, where you grew up, and your family.
So, well, I was born in 1961 in Solihull in Birmingham. Moved around a bit with my father's job. He worked for Dunlop in the tyres and associated with the tyres on the aircraft. So we moved from Birmingham to Lancashire. Lived in a place called Freckleton, which is close to Blackpool. We were there for a few years, then moved back down to Coventry, where I did my senior school education. Lived in Coventry until I was 21, and then moved to Birmingham, which I really say my cricket life took off there. But my first cricketing, I didn't play cricket at all until I was 15 years of age. I didn't play any club cricket. I didn't play at school. I didn't play any. I was going to be a footballer. That was my sort of future. I played for Lancashire Boys for a while, and I was associated with Preston North End, and some other clubs were interested in me. And then unfortunately I broke it all comes down to the left ankle. Everything I've had problems with my left ankle, which we'll finish off with. But I broke my left ankle playing rugby for school at Finham Park, comprehensive school in Coventry. And all the football clubs that were interested in me sort of said, no, you won't recover. So then I took up cricket at the age of 15. Got into the Coventry Schools under-16 team, and then joined Kenilworth Wardens, which is a club obviously in Kenilworth in Warwickshire, and then started playing cricket for Dunlop in the Coventry Works League at the age of 16, 17, where the great Fred Gardner was my coach, ex-Warwickshire player. People say that I play exactly the same mould as he did. He was a gritty opening batsman, scored lots of runs. Scored 100 against the touring Australians way back in the 60s. And he was my coach there. And after playing there, I moved to Moseley in the Birmingham League, and then my cricket took off there, really. It really started because Warwickshire second team used to play in the Birmingham League on a Saturday afternoon. And after a year of playing in the league, and I started to score runs, I thought I could play, but didn't really understand that maybe I could be a professional, until I saw how these Warwickshire players were playing in our league, and suddenly thought, I'm as good as these guys, I can take these guys on. And that's really when my passion ignited. I loved the game, but I didn't really understand that I could play professionally and be good enough to play for first-class cricket. So I tried to get into Warwickshire, but unfortunately couldn't really get a chance because the staff players always played in the second team games, and I got one or two games last minute, sort of the night before. Will you please come and join us because we're short? And that all changed when Dennis Amiss, during his testimonial year, had a game at the Blackpool Festival against Nottingham 11, and the day before the game, Andy Lloyd broke his thumb, and they needed somebody desperately to come to make up the 11 players because the second team were playing. So Gordon Lord, who was a great mate of mine, said to them, my mate will come and play for you, Dennis, he'll make up the numbers. So I had a phone call that night. The next day, got in the minibus with the Warwickshire first 11, went up the motorway, scored 60 odd not out in the game. As I say, the rest is history. I got offered a 6-week trial in 1986. And before the end of that 6 weeks, I was in the first team, and I stayed there for 12, 13 years.
Yeah. I mean, I never knew that. I mean, that's amazing. I mean, I started playing cricket more when I was like 4 or 5 years old, and everything was kind of. I mean, I played a bit of football as well. Not, probably not as good a level as you did, but I was playing all the way through my childhood, all into my teens. For you to start playing at 15 amazes me, because guys that make a county career and whatnot have been playing the game like all through their childhood. So it's quite amazing to see that you started that late, and what you went on to do. Now, you meant, so it sounds like you got that one opportunity, you impressed there, and you never looked back. You're known for being a really gritty opening batsman, and for those that don't know, the word gritty maybe means it's a fighter. You probably put a serious prize in your wicket, proper old school first class cricketer. Who did you open up with for most of your time at Warwickshire?
I had numerous. I started off with Paul Smith, who was elevated up the order because of his injuries at Warwickshire. And actually, to this date, we still hold a world record of 5 consecutive 50 opening partnerships in first-class games. So that's 2.5 games, basically.
Wow.
To this day, still a world record. So after him, Andy Lloyd was my opening partner for a while. And then from then on, there was 1 or 2. But the people who I opened a lot with was Roger Toos, Nick Knight, to mention just a couple, really. But opening the batting is about a partnership. They talk about quick bowlers operating pairs. Yeah. Opening the batting is exactly the same. It's a very it's a hard position to be in the side. If you're playing well, you're never off the field. Mm-hmm. If you think about it, you go out. If you bat for long periods of time, then you have minimal rest, and then you're back on the field fielding, and then you've got to go back and bat in the second inning. So you've got to be. My biggest quality was really good mental strength and application to how the team. And under I guess really the leaders, the 2 main coaches I had when I was there was Bob Cottam and Bob Woolmer. And the 2 of those really, under Bob Cottam, really started off is they really defined what roles each individual had to play in the side for the side to be successful. And I've taken that on into my coaching roles, getting people to understand. It's like pieces of jigsaw. If you throw pieces of jigsaw together, if they meet together and they make a perfect picture, but you only need 1 or 2 pieces to be missing, and your jigsaw just doesn't work. And a cricket team is exactly the same. So you've got to have good skills, both technically and mentally and physically. But it's the understanding. I mean, one of the greatest qualities I try and you don't achieve it in many cricket teams. I've achieved it in 1 or 2. Probably 3, 4 actually, but it's getting players to really and genuinely enjoy the success of their teammates. Unfortunately, when you don't have players who genuinely glad when their teammates do well, you can never have team harmony.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's something that I'm now, I've been transitioning a little bit more into trying to be a mentor to younger cricketers coming through now. And if I don't know how you feel. You still work with a lot of young cricketers, but I feel it's getting a bit worse. I feel like the new generation don't seem to enjoy their mate's success. And I think the beauty of enjoying your mate's success can give you so much pleasure. And it can make your team so much, like you say, so much more powerful. And that Warwickshire team that you played in, Mola, that seemed to have all of that. I mean, you seem to be a real family there.
Very much so. We all knew how each other played and how we thought on the field. We used to, when I was out and in the dressing room, we'd look at how the game was developing, and we'd discuss where we need to be, especially in one-day games. We need to be so many runs off this over to keep up with the rate. And we'd also, get to a stage where we could actually nominate shots and how batters would react to situations. And more often than not, we got it right.
Mm-hmm. No, you had such a successful time. You obviously you played between 1986 and 1997 for Warwickshire. You scored 13,316 first-class runs, or sorry, just runs in general, with an average of 38.59. You also had 3 seasons in South Africa for, correct me if I'm wrong, Griqualand West?
Griqualand, yes, it's based in Kimberley.
Right, okay, and you scored 1,989 runs at an average of 64.16. You also, in your career, had a top score of 230. So, you know, what I'm kind of leading into here is, how did Andy Moles not play Test cricket for England?
There's a lot of people that suggested that I should have had an opportunity, and there's at times in my career that I thought, you know, I could have got the nod. But when you think, for the majority of my career, there was Graham Gooch, Michael Atherton, Mickey Stewart, Butcher, to name but 4, all played over 100 Test matches, and all of them were very successful at opening the batting. So opportunities were limited because, you know, other places in the batting order were up for grabs perhaps at certain times, but opening the batting, England were fortunate and had very strong, good opening batters. So that was an object that was in my way. I've spoken to people at the end of my career that said that, particularly when the West Indies were over on one of their tours, that I was actually selected when Robin Smith was opening the batting. Okay. And Robin was struggling at the top of the order. And I think he opened for 3 Test matches. And I'm told by people in the selection that they decided that Robin had one last chance, and unfortunately he didn't do well in that Test match. That I was a leading run scorer in the country at that stage. They were going to give me the opportunity to play at Old Trafford, but unfortunately, the week before that Test match, before they announced it, is I snapped my Achilles tendon playing for Warwickshire against Somerset.
Oh no!
It just was the way the cards are dealt. I think that there may well have been 1 or 2 opportunities where I could have got a chance, but I look back on it with no bitterness. Yes, I'd love to have played, but you know, I've met some great people, and I'm still involved in the game now. So the game, in the end, has been very kind to me.
Yeah, no, it's good to hear you speak in such a positive light on it. And yeah, you're right. You were surrounded by some seriously good players. I mean, imagine if Graham Gooch was around now, and this, you know, he's just what a phenomenal opening batsman. Going on from there, just before I finished, you played with some absolute legends at Warwickshire. Like, you know, to name a few, you know, Brian Lara was at Warwickshire. You know, that my absolute hero growing up, probably many people's hero growing up. What was it like to share a changing room with a great man?
He was certainly laid back, and he was so ultra confident. Don't forget, in '94 when he played for us, it's the year he scored 500 runs against Durham. But he just scored the run. What you had to learn to do is you had to learn to run very quickly off the 6th ball of the over, because he did farm the stroke. When he was playing well, he wanted as much as the ball, and that was actually something quite difficult. And I got used to it because I spoke to some of the Worcester boys actually, and I asked them what's it like playing with Graham Hick, because obviously he scored mountains of runs and was a different class to the average county cricketer. And they said that the difficulty is when you were batting, the same as back with Brian, is that you get drawn into trying to play at their tempo. Well, of course, you know, if I try and score at the runs at the same rate of Brian Lara, then I get out, caught behind, nick behind, because there's a difference in quality. And they were saying that the same with when they batted. I spoke to Tim Curtis, and he said that the thing he learnt is that just to play at his own tempo and just let Graham play at his, and that was good for the side. And I learnt that at Warwickshire. You know, if he tried to, but it was at times you just sort of got drawn into trying to be as dominant as he was, which of course wasn't very easy. But he one thing that Brian taught, I remember taught me, and I talk to my batters now, is he got all the play. We played at Lords in a 4-day game. It was very close to us, sort of pushing to win the county championship. And he sat with the top 4 batters. There was myself, Roger Toos, Dominic Osler and Brian, top 4 batters. So as we walked from the nursery ground back over the main ground to the dressing room to start the play, he sat us down on the square and he said, right, all I'm going to tell you is you've got to find a way that you can keep yourself switched on and you concentrate, because during the innings you get ebbs and flows with your concentration. You've got to find a way. And he says, My way, he says, was financial. He was sponsored so much a run when he played for Warwickshire by different sponsors. And that motivated him. He says, that motivates me. And I use that. He says, but you guys have got to find some way that what motivates you. And I straight away then used to imagine my two boys, who were probably 4 and 1 at that sort of stage. I used to imagine they were sat in the stands watching me for every innings from there, and I didn't want to let them down. And that really focused my mind, and I became, even stronger mentally, to do the job that needed to be done.
No, that's a great inspiration to have your children as your inspiration. That's awesome, Mola. One other guy that you've with is also the opposite end of the spectrum, White Lightning, Mr. Alan Donald. How was it like playing with him, and how was net practice when you had to rock up in the morning to have him steaming in?
Yeah, well, that's part of one of the things that sort of put us in good stead. We had Gladstone Small, Alan Donald, Paul Smith, Tim Munton, Dermot Reeve, amongst others. So every time we had middle practice or we had nets, when you went out into the middle, the opposing, they all had one or two bowlers, but they didn't have the same depth that we had. So every time we practiced, and the one thing I've come to learn again in the coaching world is practice is only as good as if it's at match intensity. And when those guys are on and they're working hard at their skills, then it's a great theatre for me as a batsman to get my skills worked under pressure to make sure that I was mentally strong and technically right to go out and play in the middle. Yeah, no. So, and especially if you were obviously striving to try and push for Test cricket, having a bowler like that at your county gave you a real kind of, eye opener of what you were going to come up against. So look, amazing side. You were also once voted the best ever player not to play for England. I mean, we've touched on that already, but that just shows how highly regarded you were as an opening batsman, and what a career you had with Warwickshire. All good things come to an end. The playing days are short-lived, and you kind of, I believe, retired from the game around 97, 98. Yeah, 98. I retired. 98, and you decided to transition into a new stage of life. You had some great inspirations that you touched on for the coaching world, which were the late Bob Bulmer and the great man Bob Cottam. Did they help you with that transition period initially leading into coaching? Especially Bob Bulmer. Bob sort of said to me in one of the winters, when I was still playing, well, what are you going to do? Why don't you do your coaching courses now? So I did a lot of my coaching courses before I finished playing. And he sort of pushed me to the challenge of trying to be a coach. Obviously, no idea that I'd go on to coach test level teams, etc. But the one thing that he was always, the one thing I've tried to do is look at the way he operated and the good qualities and how he went about preparing his teams and challenging. The one thing about Bob Bulmer is he always challenged cricketers to get better. Didn't matter whether you were a senior player, a junior player, or a player who'd been playing for 4 or 5 years. Always get better, either technically, mentally, or physically. So, I mean, the one thing that the Warwickshire team sort of transitioned is that he brought him and Dermot Reeve brought the reverse sweep. We all practiced one pre-season. We all practiced the reverse sweep because we'd worked out that the year before we'd had a poor season in one-day cricket, and it was something I can't remember. But the opposition spinners, whenever they bowled at us, we only scored at something like 3.8 or 4.1 runs per over against spin. And that's an issue with a lot of cricketers. We all like the ball to come onto the bat, we're used to it. But when you have to score runs and rotate the strike against spin, it's a problem. It's a problem with the Afghanistan team. I worked with them. And one thing he worked on was manoeuvring the field to make it easier to rotate the strike. And we worked on it is that by playing the reverse sweep, that's been the guy from mid-wicket that usually stood by the umpire at square leg. He used to come across to 45 on the offside to stop the reverse sweep, which became easier then just to deflect the ball on the leg side for 1 run. And the following year, we won one of the one-day competitions, and we went up to about 5.6, 5.5 runs per over throughout the whole season. And it was just because we'd identified we didn't rotate the strike, and the easiest way to do that was to open a pocket on the ground that we could get singles easier. And that was really what Bob was about. Him and Dermot looking at simple ways to make life easier, risk-free cricket.
Mm-hmm. No, it's really, really interesting to hear. You started your coaching career, then you went back over to SA, where you'd had a successful playing time, and you played for Orange Free State.
That's right.
You coached.
Coach Free State. Yeah, they had a great time. Of course, they were captained by Hansi Cronje. Alan Donald was the opening bowler. Nicky Boyer, the young off spinner, played for them. Franklin Stevenson was the overseas cricketer for them. They had a very, very strong side, a very good side, and certainly that I learned an awful lot by, Hansi was a great thinker of the game, and he helped me a lot, and a great tragedy when he lost his life. But all the other cricketers that were there, and the one thing about the Afrikaners in that part of the world, their work ethic is probably the best I've ever seen anywhere. When you say to them, we're going to have a net practice at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they're all there at 3 o'clock doing laps of the ground, doing their own fitness work before the net practice started. They were phenomenal in the way they went about their preparation.
So it sounds like that was quite an easy transitional, kind of nice transition for you to go into with so much experience around. It was kind of you were spoiled almost as a coach there initially, just to kind of find your feet in the role.
It was, but you then learn for the first time that as a coach you're judged by other people's work. As a cricketer, when I went out to bat, I was in charge of my own future. If I had 2 or 3 games where I didn't get any runs, then I knew I had to dig in and get a score to keep my place in the side. Yep. When you coach a cricket team, and you can do as much preparation as you want, and it still applies today. When they go across that white line and that team starts playing, the amount of time, why are they doing that? We discussed we weren't going to do this. Why is he bowling now? We discussed that we weren't going to use him against this batsman or whatever tactics you decide. But it's like reading a book. You just have to turn the page and just let the story unfold until they come off at lunch or at the end of the day, and you can just try and digest what's happened and talk. And that's really, for me, is the art of coaching. It's not all about just telling people how to play forward defensive or the sweep shot. It's about applying the skills to the game as it unravels. And the best players are the ones who react best to as the game presents itself to them in any situation.
2001, Mola, you took your first international role and you took on the Hong Kong national coaching job. How did that come about, and how was that period for you?
Yeah, well, that was in the winter because it's the South African season plays opposite to the Northern Hemisphere. So during the winter in South Africa, there was an opportunity to come at Hong Kong. We're going to the ICC, their sort of qualifying tournament. Yeah. They were looking for a coach to come in. And a friend of mine rang me and said, look, there's an opportunity here. They want somebody for 6 weeks. Great opportunity to go and coach in a different environment, go to Hong Kong, and then the tournament was in Canada. So I approached my employers in Free State. I said, look, if I apply for this position, will you give me 6 weeks off without pay? Let me go and learn some more, because there wasn't much going on. It's obviously in the midwinter in Bloemfontein.
Yeah.
And as it happens, that I applied for the job. I got given the opportunity. It was a great learning experience.
No, that's the first initial stages of going into that. 2003, you then took on another national team job. You took on the Kenya role. You went over there. It didn't last too long, only a year, and you decided to quit the role due to what sounded like a lot of bickering between the board, and just sounded like an all-round tough gig at the time. Talk to me about the experience of the Kenyan side.
Yeah, well, at that time, Bob Woolmer was appointed as the ICC in charge of coaches and the top associate teams. He looked after them and made sure the coaches were going right. So he approached me and said, after the World Cup in South Africa, where they come fourth in South Africa, he said, look, the way that they improved, they're going to be the next test playing side. Please come and take them on for me. Look after them. They need to get fitter. They need to learn about, as I was saying before, team harmony. Yeah. you're my man, will you please come and do it? So I went there and took over. It was difficult. There's very talented cricketers again, but they didn't quite get the message about being pleased for everybody's success. They're a team of individuals, and and it wasn't their fault. They had a fallout with the board over finances that should have come their way after the World Cup. I think, without going into details, basically they had agreement that any monies that they won during the World Cup is that they would be allowed to keep it. Well, no way did anybody ever understand that because of political reasons, England didn't go to New Zealand. England didn't go to Zimbabwe. New Zealand didn't go to Kenya to play games, so they got awarded points for games that were called off. Of course, they got to the semi-finals. They had one great win. They beat Sri Lanka, which was a good result. But because of other things that were happening in the political sort of scene, they ended up finishing fourth. And of course, when they finished fourth, they actually got a huge amount of money. They got for finishing fourth. Now suddenly the board said, no, we want some of that money now because we want to put it. But the thing is, the players had a signed agreement that no, any money is ready, because barring those political things going on, they'd have finished. They wouldn't have got past the first round of games. So they'd have had a minimum, maybe $10,000, $15,000. As it turned out, there was over $100,000, $150,000, $200,000. I don't know the exact amount, but it was a huge amount of money. Now the players we want our money, but the board didn't want to give them the money. So then there was strikes that went on, and the players had a fair grievance. I think at times that they went the wrong way about it, striking. Whenever we had teams come to Kenya to play against us, the morning of the game, they'd just go on strike. So you've got India A, Pakistan A over there. We're about to play a tri-series. The players turned up. I get a phone call at 9 o'clock in the morning. We're not coming to play today. We're going on strike because of play. Which is, they went away about it the way they thought they could bring maximum pressure to bear. And it was a very sad situation.
So it just sounds like you were never really able to do your job in that time in Kenya. You were never really able to coach them because of all these other outside interferences that were going on, and these things happen sometimes, and there's not really, a coach is not something you can really change or wave a magic wand. And that brought you into another national team coach, and this is where I get to know the great Andy Moles. You came over to sunny Scotland to coach the Scotland national team. How did the job come about? And tell me about when you first came over, how you felt about things.
Yeah, well, the job was advertised on the ICC website, and I emailed Roddy and said to him, look, I'd like to apply for the position. What's the chances? And he said, well, send your application and we'll see where it goes. And I was very pleased to get the opportunity but it was only an 8-month contract, because the role was to try and we had to go to Ireland for the qualification for the World Cup in the West Indies. Yeah. And the ICC funding for my salary was only for 8 months. Yeah. If we qualified, then would be more. The money would come in for the preparation of the World Cup, and then Scotland would extend my contract. Yeah, I had a great summer. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I loved Edinburgh. Some real great friends I've still got from there. Really enjoyed the city, although I still have many memories of boys up there saying that how much they hate England and they don't get on with the English and that sort of thing. But it was great. It was great banter. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Yeah. Unfortunately, at the end of we went to Ireland and we won. We ranked number one, a side, ready to go to the West Indies. And then just at the end of that summer, my contract was up and we were going to negotiate a new contract. So I was out of contract, and Warwickshire job became available. Yep. Warwickshire put my own side. I went to see Roddy and Craig, the captain, and said, look, I'm going to apply for this position. I don't know if I'm going to get it, but I'm just letting you know. At that stage, Roddy came back to me, said, right, we'll offer you a 2-year contract to go to the. I said, great. And he said to me, no problem. And the board are happy. Go ahead and have your interview. We know you that you're only on an 8-month. You're only coming here for 8 months. Mm-hmm. And of course, when I went there, there's a whole story there that they offered me the job and then it didn't transpire. But then, unfortunately, there was a miscommunication. I don't know. As I say, so some of the senior players decided that I wasn't committed enough to Scotland because I'd applied for this Warwickshire job. So they decided that they didn't want me around anymore. So one thing I've certainly learned in my coaching career is you can only help people if they want to listen to you. Yeah. And if you're not wanted as a coach, and we'll come on to talk about the New Zealand issue a little bit later, but one thing I've come to learn, and it's a waste of time fighting, that if the players, for whatever reason, don't want you as their coach, the best thing is just to pack your bags and just say, good luck, get on with it, and just walk away. And that's what happened.
Well, just on that, I would like to add a little part just in there before we go on and talk about other things. So, Andy Moles, you came to Scotland. I'll never forget, I was batting in a net practice at the Grange Cricket Ground. It was the first time you'd ever seen me play. And I had a decent net. And you pretty much gave me my early opportunities to come into the Scotland national team. And then we went out to South Africa for what was one of the toughest experiences yet, one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had. I've got people like, Richard Berrington wanted me to pass his best wishes on to you. Obviously myself, Richard Berrington, many of the other Scottish boys. You had actually arranged it that there was a good 8-9 of the Scottish boys. There was also a certain Owen Morgan that was part of that academy as well. We had the coaches and yourself, Bob Cotton, John Davidson from Canada, and Mark Lane as well. Your good friend too. And my experience of that time will live on for the rest of my life. I learned so much from you, all the coaches. You were all fantastic. We had a real family out there. And we were about to go to, I think it was Barbados around that time, just soon after it, for a tour. And you gave me a side, and I was lined up to go. I'd had a great time out in South Africa. Things were going really well. You talked about me really pushing into the national team, and all of a sudden, a bit of player power, unfortunately, pushed you out. And that was the end of your time in Scotland. And it's always saddened me. It's always saddened me because I always wondered if I'd got to be under you for a few more years, where my career may have gone. But listen, these things happen. Such is life.
I can just come in there, just to give credit where credit's due. I then went on to coach New Zealand. Yeah. But about a year later, New Zealand came over for the T20 World Cup in England. Yeah. And there was a group of associate players, of which was 3 or 4 or 5 from Scotland, came and played against the New Zealand team in a warm-up game. Yeah. And I thought, oh, here we go, because there was Craig, Smith, the wicketkeeper, and 2 or 3 others. And the game was just about to start, and I looked up and saw 3 or 4 of the Scottish guys walking across towards me. Now, I haven't seen them since this player power thing happened, and I thought, here we go, what's going to happen here? Yeah. And credit to them, because Craig is a very proud man, and is not a person to back down. And he came across with 2 or 3 of his teammates and said, look, Molo, we got it wrong. We're sorry. We thought we read it a situation as this, that you weren't interested in Scottish cricket because you applied for another job. They now understand, and they wish me the best for the New Zealand. And I shook their hands, and genuinely, I've not had a bad thought about Scottish cricket or them since then.
That's good. That's good to hear, and I'm proud of those guys for doing that, because I remember at the time it was good to hear your story on that, because I never ever knew that, and I thought it was maybe still a bit of bad feeling there. So it's great to hear that was mended. You then moved on, took another coaching role other side of the world now, for Northern Districts in New Zealand. Now you had a really successful time with them. You led them to a state championship.
Yeah, we had a real good. So this is probably the closest I got a team to behaving like the Warwickshire team. They were led by Marshall, one of the twins, and we had got a senior player group together who were so into the way I believed, the way I wanted the team to play and to behave on and off the field. Mm-hmm. And we won the 4-day competition, and really that was the most enjoyable time coaching a provincial team in my career.
No, and that obviously got you recognised by the powers above of the national team, and you took on the New Zealand national team job in 2008 What a big moment for you, Mola. Like that's the, and your whole career up to date of coaching, that was the biggest role you'd taken on.
Exactly, yeah, and it was and I knew there was issues. They had a very strong senior player group. You talk about Daniel Vettori, Mills. There was just so many of them. McCullum, of course, and the coach before me, John Bracewell, was a very strong coach that ruled the team with a rod of iron, and they wanted more say. And they were very strong characters, those senior players. They wanted to have more say in the team selection, more say in the way they practiced. And I was asked by the CEO to let them have that freedom. So, my first opportunity to coach at that level, I said, okay. But unfortunately, ironically, we had a very, very young side. Ross Taylor, for example, had only played, I think, from about 7 or 8 test matches when I started. So it was a very young side. Dan Vettori was an exceptional leader. He was a very good captain, but he wanted more and more say. And the CEO told me he wanted to have more say in selection, more say in practice. And one thing I've never done since then is I said, okay, fine, if that's what you want. But it ended up things were happening that I didn't really agree with. In certain things, but I still thoroughly enjoyed the opportunity of working there. My last game I coached there is we played in a world final. We played in Pretoria in the Champions Trophy 50 over competition, and we lost a tight game against Australia. And then after that, a month later, I was sort of shown the door, as it were, which I thought quite bizarre, really, since we just got to a world final, which they haven't done. Well, they did it in the last World Cup, but I thought we were going in the right way. But again, as I said before, and it's something, a mantra I've come, you can only work in an environment that wants you to be in that environment. If they don't want you in the environment, you can't win, you can't change any ideas, you can't do your job properly. Best thing to do is just say, okay, good luck to you, thanks for the opportunity, but I'm going to move on.
Yeah. You kind of then took a bit of you took a couple of years out the big lights, you could say, which obviously after having coaching a test playing nation, you went and worked with a university for 4 or 5 years. Tell me about the setup and what that entailed.
Yeah, well, to be honest, when I left New Zealand, I fell out of love with the game a little bit because I thought I was there doing the best I could and we're starting to have success, but for whatever reason, I was out the door. So I came back here and there's University of the Western Cape is a predominantly an underprivileged coloured university in Cape Town, and an NGO there, Life Skills for Sports Skills it's called, as a magnificent program where they recruit or get the opportunity or give opportunity to aspiring academics that can't afford to go to university from the townships and things like that, but also play cricket. So they're looking to give cricketers who want to further their education. So we look for the mixture of good cricketers, but also get university passes, but can't afford to go to university. So this program brings these individuals together. They pay for their accommodation, they pay for their food. It really is a social program. I found it very uplifting, and it got me to love the game again. And I was lucky enough to sort of inherit a good side with some good leaders. And again, they picked up on this mantra of enjoying everybody's success, and they'd come a really close picture. And we won the 2 competitions in Cape Town against some very strong sides here. And really, once I got going there, then I left there to go to Afghanistan.
Just on that, it sounds like it was a really rewarding kind of role, and it took stripped back and away from, like I said, the big lights. You must have seen some stories of some boys coming from deprived backgrounds and stuff that were able to get careers and stuff. It must have brought you so much pride in the role. Yeah,
I still keep in touch with a lot of those guys. There's there's about 3 or 4 of them over that period have gone on to play first class cricket, but it's not. The cricket is important, but the main thing is getting them to and this is one thing that I've certainly learnt, is it's about life away from the cricket game. Good players are players that have a good quality of life and life skills away from the game. You know, all the best players I've been associated with are happy away from the cricket field as they are on the cricket field. And this program sort of confirmed all those thoughts to me. And you know, I really enjoyed working with the players, and it wasn't financially rewarding like all the other jobs, but spiritually, and really just for me, for what I needed at that time after New Zealand, that was the perfect fit.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it. It sounds like it, because that leads you into your next coaching role, which is kind of, you know, seemed like at the time when I heard Andy Moses taking on the Afghanistan coaching job, you know, watching from the outside, I was curious to see how it was going to go, because I was thinking big cultural change, something completely different that you would have been used to. Obviously, Afghanistan were very early stages and making their way into kind of the international scene. So tell me about how it all came about, and how the early stages went.
Yeah, well, my agent contacted me and said that they were looking for someone to do some batting coaching, just to go up there and help them ahead of I think they were about a year away from going to the World Cup. So I went up there. I was a little bit apprehensive, obviously, to go to Kabul. And you know, it's been well documented. My brother is well established in the anti-terrorism world. Did work for the Met Police. He now is in Bahrain, working for the Sheikh there about anti-terrorism. But so he was dubious about whether I should do it, and gave me a lot of advice. Anyway, the challenge was just something I had to do. So I flew in there. It was quite scary at times because the unknown. But it soon became apparent to me that the Afghanistan Cricket Board looked after me very well, and did everything they could to ensure that my safety was paramount. Mm-hmm. So when I was there, I saw that they had a real massive amounts of talent. And once I came away from there, then I don't know what happened, but they decided that they wanted to replace the national coach with me to go back as head coach. They contacted me when I'd been back for about 2 months. They said, look, would you come back and would you accept the job as national coach? Mm-hmm. Which, you know, was a year out from the World Cup in Australia and New Zealand. And there's no way I was going to turn down that opportunity to go to the World Cup with this side. So, yeah, so I went back there and worked with them. I was there for 18 months, I think, just under 2 years. Mm-hmm. And then when my contract was over, there was the security issues started to develop again, so I left. And then they enticed me back again about a year later, and I'm still there now.
So just on that, first and foremost, they've got some talent there, Mola. I mean, it reminds me of, like, I come from Pakistani background, and I know from going to the streets of Pakistan, you could be driving, you know, walking along the road, and you could just see a kid in a street, and he's got amazing talent, you know, it might be spin bowling, what was it like for you to kind of, is that what it was like in Afghanistan? Was there just talent that you were just spotting everywhere?
There's, you know, the thing that you have to dilute it, this problem, because there's so many, you know, as you say, you go to Pakistan, and in Afghanistan, it's probably a little bit worse. That with the war situation, it's hard life. A lot of the children especially are brought up in very tough circumstances. But cricket's their opportunity to try and get out and bring in some money for the family and that sort of thing. So cricket is a vehicle for them to provide for their family. I mean, you know, you talk about the Rashid Khan, who is a magnificent bowler, and we've got other spin bowlers. But last year we had a spin bowling camp, and we asked just for wrist spinners, not off spinners or left arm spinners, just wrist spinners, so leg spinners basically, and Chinamen. Mm-hmm. We asked for the best quality, not just everybody, but good quality. We went out. I said to the junior coaches, bring in, let's have a spin bowling camp, see what we got. There was 200 of which I'd say at least 50 of them would be good enough to play first class cricket.
Wow.
They're just everywhere. Batting is a weakness because I tell you what, they can hit fours and sixes all day long, but all they play is this tennis ball cricket, which tape ball cricket, and it's all about just hitting fours and sixes. So they're brought up on that diet. They don't understand. For me, the success of batters, or the best batters, have a good defensive technique and can rotate the strike. Everybody can hit fours and sixes. But the thing is, can they bat for 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours in first class cricket so that the innings can stretch out? And that's the challenge we're trying to help our batters within Afghanistan at the moment.
I mean, it was the last World Cup campaign. They seemed, again, just before the campaign started, there seemed to be some. I had John Mooney on actually recently on a podcast, and he talked about it, and he said it was one of the best experiences he's ever had to go out to Afghanistan. He obviously went out to work with Big Phil, but he did say that the board still, there was some, with the situation with the captain and whatnot, he reckons if it had been a little bit better handled, they could have done a lot better at that competition. He said they should never have lost all the games. Yeah,
no, the team definitely underperformed. The change of captaincy obviously didn't help the harmony of the team. Unfortunately in cricket, why there's these politics involved, I don't know. But in every sort of cricket environment I've been involved in, there's always something going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And unfortunately in Afghanistan, they're no different from anywhere else. But the one thing about Pakistan, they're so passionate in everything they do. They'd argue over who should open the bowling, with passion. They wear their heart on the sleeve. So, very often in the dressing room, there's shouting and of course there's a language barrier because they're all talking Pashto.
Yeah.
So that becomes an issue. But the one thing is their love of the game, and really they want to win and don't understand when they lose why they lost. And because they believe that they should win every game of cricket, no matter who they play against, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
But it's about just applying the extra basics and getting themselves manoeuvring the game into match-winning situations.
You've obviously done. You've been loved there. You've obviously the connection has been a good one. You're still like you say, part of the furniture. You're the director of cricket. You work with the 18. You work with the under-19s. You've got. Talk to me about your director of cricket role. You're also the chief. You're one of the chief selectors as well. I mean, you're really a big influence in Afghanistani cricket. Yeah,
it's. I think one of the reasons why I've been put in this position is that to make sure that it can across the country they see somebody who's neutral in a position that's not going to make decisions to favour people. So me. The people who know me, I'm straight down the line.
Yeah,
I don't pick people because I like them or I don't like them or anything else. And that's one of the things. I think they wanted someone to come in who could not be accused of being parochial, could not be accused of being one-sided towards the Pashtuns or anybody else. Just come in and make. I live by the mantra: just make cricketing decisions for cricketing reasons, and that's all I keep saying to them. When I leave somebody out of a squad or when I pick a squad. They get very passionate. Why not playing? Because in this, I'll just say, the way that you've played before and on your record, we need to bring younger players in. We can't stand still, and we've got to keep moving forward. We can't stand still. And I think it would be difficult. It would be harder for one of the locals to make some of the changes I've made because they could accuse them of making decisions to favour certain people where, although some people have tried to put that label on me, it doesn't wash for very long because they all know at the end of the day that I'm just a person that makes a decision for what's for the good of Afghanistan cricket. And to be fair, it gets a bit difficult at times, but the Afghanistan Cricket Board, the chairman and the CEO have been very supportive, and we all have a goal that we want to push to, and that's just to make just simple thing. Just make the cricket better in the country, step by step.
What's the future just on that front? What's next for Afghanistan? What's your aspirations, and what do you want to see Afghanistan do?
Well, the national side obviously has got to be more consistent. We've got the Asia Cup, I believe, is now going to take place in Sri Lanka. So we'll play in that. I'm not so sure about the World Cup. We were looking forward to playing in that, a T20 World Cup. But I think I've seen things on social media that might not happen until next year now. But they're still, ICC is still debating that. But the biggest thing for me is in the Test cricket, for the national side, Test cricket and in one-day cricket, we need to get more consistent. We're a dangerous cricket team because we're not consistent. So that's Lance Kluser is the head coach and he's in charge of that and he's working with that. My role as a coach now is with the A team and the under-23s is to make sure we have our younger players come through, learn about playing in different conditions around the world, so that they put pressure on the players in the national side, so we can keep improving because we have got good young players.
Well, I've seen that the under-19. I've seen that under-19 World Cup. Some phenomenal players coming through.
We've got some really talented players, but the thing is, in the past, they haven't been able to move through, so they get hit a bottleneck and we lose players. So the difficult thing is that I've got to, for the good of moving forward, I'm going to bring some of these young players into the national side, and obviously to do that, I've got to leave out some of the senior players, and they're not too keen on that happening. So that's where it comes down to. I'm sorry, I've got to make a decision that's for the good of the country in the next 3-4 years, not for this series we're going to play just today.
Great to hear. Now, the next thing I'm going to talk to you about, Mola, it's obviously well documented. Recent times, I only found out about a month ago myself. It was really sad to see, but I was also inspired by my old coach, and I was proud of you that in April 2020, Mola, unfortunately, you had to have your leg amputated from the knee down. Talk to me about what led to those events.
All right, so it all started about 7 or 8 months ago in Abu Dhabi, where I had a blister on the sole of my foot after training one day, and which got infected. And over the next 5 months or so, that was treated and it got better, and it was just about 100% here. So I thought I was over the hurdle. And then a separate infection on the side of my big toe, which I found out now is an MRSA infection. We're not quite sure where it's come from, but I had this MRSA, which is a bug that is resistant to antibiotics. So I went into hospital here. They tried to treat it, but they couldn't stop the bug, and it was basically, for want of a better description, eating away my little toe on my left foot. So they amputated the little toe in the hope that they cut away all the infection and it would get better. But unfortunately, the infection was a bit deeper in the foot. So over the next 2 weeks, I was in hospital. They drained the wound and cut a little bit more flesh away. But unfortunately, on the 4th of April, the main foot specialist came to see me after he'd come to see me to give me a second opinion. And he said, unfortunately, the way that the infection was going, it needed to be stopped, or else it would spread in either a septicemia or worse, it would spread up my leg and I have to have my whole leg amputated. So he said to me at 7:30 in the morning on a Saturday morning, his advice and direction would be for me to have the leg amputated just below the knee. I just said to him, look, he said, what do you think? I said, well, I wouldn't expect you to tell me how to play forward defensive. I'm not going to tell you how to cut somebody's leg off. I said, if that's really where you tell we're at, then let's just get it done. At 12:30 that afternoon, I was wheeled down to theatre, and at 4 o'clock I woke up and I only had half a leg.
How did you deal? How have you managed to? I mean, I don't want to get you emotional. That's not what I'm looking to do. But how did you deal with that at the time? You must have been in shock.
Well, I can tell you, it sort of prepared me 2 or 3 days before, saying this isn't looking good, but hopefully the antibiotics will kick in. But if it doesn't work, we're going to have to talk about amputation. And I said, yeah, it'll be all right, don't worry. And he said, yeah, let's hope so. So it sort of planted the seed. Mm-hmm. And then when he actually did tell me, he came to me and said that we need to do this. For half an hour, when he left the room for half an hour, I felt sorry for myself, and I rang my dad and Tim Munton, who's a friend of mine, and my partner Megan, to say, look, here we are. We've actually got to this point that we didn't think would arrive, because I spoke to them. I said, it's happening today.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt sorry for myself, and then suddenly hit me. Well, really, I mean, we spoke about Matthew Maynard and you losing your son. Really, I've lost half a leg. Really, what on earth have I got to feel sorry about? In the great scheme of things, I've just lost half a leg. So what? I haven't lost. Nobody's removed my brain. Nobody's extracted my cricket knowledge from my body. All that's happened is and I've started walking on the prosthetic leg now. I've got to learn to do that. It will probably take another 6 weeks before I get fully mobile. Then I'm back out there coaching again. Yes, it's been traumatic. It's been hard work. But in the great scheme of things, when you look around the world, this terrible virus we've got at the moment, I mean, people are losing their lives. People are losing their loved ones. And I reiterate, I've lost half a leg. It's not nice, but it's not the end of the world. And I refuse to be treated as if it's the end of the world. So, I've turned it into a little bit of a positive by the Professional Players Trust in England has helped me financially. I mean, this leg's cost me £10,000, all in all. So I'm doing a charity rate. I've got to getting on to £2,500 already, and I know some other people are going to put some in that I know about. So we will be up to about £3,500. And I'm doing a weekly sort of blog, if you like, video, which I send across, which will go on, which you'll see now. Yeah. Will go on, just saying how I'm getting on and showing where I am. I'm up to about 1.5K, something like that.
Well, good for you.
Really so, it's going to be a challenge. It's not easy. I've got a bit of pain in my left knee from where the leg fits into the socket, into the prosthetic leg. Yeah. It's like wearing a brand new pair of shoes, and it rubs and it's sore at times, but you've just got to keep going. Yeah.
So how do you train walking on that, Mola? What are you doing with yourself to kind of get used to walking with it? How do you said it would take you probably about 6 weeks. So what kind of stuff do you do to get yourself prepared?
Well, I've got like a Zimmer frame, so I use that because the last thing I need to do is to trip over and fall forward.
Yeah.
So I've got a Zimmer frame, and I just walk around the block here. It's 400 meters around my block, and some days I do 200 meters, some days I do 400 meters.
Yeah.
I just add it up as we're going, and it's just main thing is just gaining confidence because it feels strange. There's nothing there. You've got a leg you can't feel. Yeah. So it's just gaining confidence to be that it's fine and that you can be mobile.
Listen, it's it's your whole story, Mola. You've been a fighter from day one. You were a gritty opening batsman. You taught me so much in my brief time getting to know you. I learned so much from you. I always talk. Anybody asks me, you might even have seen on Facebook recently, all these people are doing these selection things about who's this guy, who's their favourite batsman, and I put you down as my favourite coach. So I'm really proud of you. I'll be following your blog. If there's anything I can do sponsorship-wise to try and grow things in Scotland for you and get you more back.
On that, just try and talk to all the people up there that obviously like having me around. It's quite simple. Go to justgiving/Andy Moles. It'll take you straight, and the money goes straight into the Professional Cricketers Trust. Goes straight into that. So justgiving/Andy Moles. It'll take it to there. The idea is you walk 10Ks or run or swim, but you don't have to do that. I'm going to do that for you. If anybody out there feels that they can contribute for this great charity, then it'll be received with thanks. Thank you.
Well, no, I'll be putting that out this evening, Mola, and looking to try and get people on board. Listen, you stay strong, keep inspiring people, and there's a bright future still ahead. I look forward to seeing what you do with Afghanistani cricket next, and maybe we can talk again someday down the line and on my podcast again.
Anytime, mate. Lovely to see you again, and best wishes to everybody up there in Scotland.
Thanks, Mola. You take care.
God bless you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.